I discovered my grandmother's dark secret and the possession that followed Reddit stories. They say every family has a skeleton in the closet. Ours had a locked attic, and an unspoken rule never to enter it. I didn't question that rule for the first 17 years of my life, not because I was obedient, but because I never had the time or interest. School, sports, the internet, and teenage drama kept me grounded in the present. Until the day my grandmother died. That's when the past, hidden and preserved like dust beneath floorboards, began to seep through the cracks of our home and settle on everything we thought we knew about each other. My grandmother, Helen, wasn't a warm woman. She had this way of looking right through you, as if she could already see the mistake you hadn't yet made. Her presence alone was enough to silence a room. My mother adored her, though, or maybe feared her. It was always hard to tell. When Grandma Helen passed away in her sleep on a dull Tuesday morning, it was my mother who crumpled, not out of grief, but something closer to guilt. I saw it in her eyes as she clutched the edge of the kitchen sink and whispered, "She's gone," like it was both a tragedy and a release. The funeral was small and formal, just how she would have wanted. No tears, no long speeches, no drama. We came home that night to find the house impossibly quiet. For the first time in years, it felt like something was missing. Not the presence of a person, but the absence of their control. Mom barely spoke. Dad offered his usual distraction, burying himself in emails and cable news. My younger sister, Lily, was already glued to her phone, posting a black and white rose on Instagram with the caption, "Rest easy, Queen." Life was supposed to go back to normal, but it didn't. 2 weeks later, the will was read. There wasn't much or a few pieces of jewelry, some old stocks, and a vague mention of a family heirloom, to be returned to its rightful place. The lawyer said that part with a strange expression, like he wanted to ask a question but thought better of it. We shrugged it off, chalking it up to Grandma's typical cryptic nonsense. My mother didn't comment. That night, I had a dream. I was walking through a field of mirrors, and every reflection was my grandmother. But younger. She was wearing the same expression I remembered, only now it was twisted into something like panic. In the dream, she held out a necklace, a locket actually, and whispered, "Don't trust her." I woke up gasping. It was just a dream. But dreams don't make you sweat like that unless they know something you don't. The next morning, I stood outside the attic door for a long time. It was unremarkable. White paint peeling slightly, the keyhole rusted over. I had passed it 1,000 times before and never felt anything. Now, I could practically hear it breathing. Maybe it was the draft from the vents. Maybe it was grief. Or maybe it was time. I found the key in the sewing drawer downstairs. I don't know how I knew it would be there, but the moment my fingers wrapped around its cold, iron frame, I knew I was about to break a rule no one had written, only felt. The lock gave with a shudder. The door creaked open. Dust, of course, the kind that clings to your lungs and stings your eyes. And boxes. Piles and piles of cardboard, some sealed with brittle tape, others bulging with yellowed photo albums and forgotten heirlooms. But the thing that caught my eye was a trunk. Dark wood, iron corners, and initials carved into the side, ERH. My grandmother's maiden initials. I didn't hesitate, I pulled it open. Inside was fabric. Layers of lace and linen folded so precisely it felt almost sacrilegious to touch. Beneath them, something heavy. I reached down and pulled out a velvet pouch, the drawstring frayed with time. Inside was a necklace. No, the necklace. The one from my dream. The locket was heavier than I expected, cool and smooth in my palm. I turned it over. There was something etched on the back. A name. Not my grandmother's. Someone I'd never heard of before. Evelyn Rose. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, expecting my mother, maybe even Lily. But no one was there. The attic was silent. Still, something shifted in that moment, like the house had exhaled. I brought the locket downstairs. Mom was in the living room, staring blankly at a crossword puzzle. I handed it to her, not saying a word, her face drained of color. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Where did you find this?" Her voice was barely audible. "In the attic," I replied. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "You shouldn't have gone up there." But I had, and I wasn't sorry. That night, I Googled the name. Evelyn Rose Hartwell. A hit. An old article from 1967. Local girl missing after fire. The photo showed a girl who looked exactly like my grandmother, but younger, with a softer smile. The article mentioned a fire at a boarding school. No body found, presumed dead. I turned to my mother. "Who was Evelyn Rose?" She didn't answer, just walked out of the room and locked herself in the bedroom. From that moment, the silence in our house changed. It wasn't just heavy, it was hostile. Doors creaked open by themselves. Light bulbs flickered. Our cat refused to go near the attic, and my dreams came every night, always the same. Evelyn, in the mirror field. Always whispering. She lied. Ask her why. So I did. One morning, I cornered my mother in the kitchen. I showed her the article. Demanded the truth. She was my aunt. She finally said, "Your grandmother's sister. She looks like her twin." She was her twin, she said. Identical. And then a pause. "But Evelyn died in the fire." That's what they said. I stared at her. "What you said." She didn't deny it. That day, I returned to the attic. Searched every box, every folder. And I found something. A photo album hidden inside a hollowed-out Bible. The first pages were normal. Weddings, birthdays, baptisms. But halfway through, the pictures changed. Two girls, always two. Dressed alike, standing beside a lake. Smiling in front of a Christmas tree. But one girl's face was always slightly turned, always blurry. As if the camera rejected her presence. On the last page was a newspaper clipping. Local woman found alive after 20 years in Asylum. No photo, just a name. Evelyn Rose Hartwell. That's when the pieces fell into place. Evelyn didn't die in the fire. She survived. But something about her survival had been buried. By someone. Someone who took her place. Someone who lived a life that wasn't hers. And the locket, it wasn't just jewelry, it was proof. Of a life stolen. Of a woman erased. I had always thought my grandmother was cold because life made her that way. Now, I realized it was guilt. Guilt that aged her, twisted her smile, and hardened her touch. Because she hadn't just buried her sister's memory. She had become her. But here's the part I can't explain. The day after I discovered the truth, the locket disappeared. I searched the whole house. Gone. My mother claimed she never touched it. I didn't believe her. Until Lily came to me pale and shaking and said, "I saw her. Upstairs. In the attic." "Who?" I asked. "The woman in the photo." She said her name was Evelyn. And she said, "She wants her life back." And that was only the beginning. It's strange how truth doesn't always bring clarity. Sometimes it just rips the floor out from under you, revealing the darker things buried beneath. After Lily told me she saw Evelyn, everything that had once felt stable in our house began to disintegrate. Not in some horror movie kind of way, with flickering lights and slamming doors, but in subtler, more intimate shifts. The temperature in the attic was always wrong, either too warm or freezing. Our mother started locking her bedroom door every night, and Lily began sleepwalking. The first time it happened, I found her standing at the attic door. Eyes wide open, hand resting on the doorknob. She didn't respond when I called her name. Didn't blink. Just whispered, "I remember the lake," and turned back to bed. When I asked her about it in the morning, she had no memory of it at all. Said she hadn't dreamt, hadn't woken up, but her sheets were twisted like she'd been wrestling with something invisible, something real. I started digging, not just online, but into our family history. School records, archived newspapers, even medical files I found at the library's microfilm section. The story unraveled itself like a spool of barbed wire. Evelyn had been institutionalized in 1967, after the fire. Not because she was mentally ill, but because she insisted that her sister had started the fire to kill her. And that she wasn't Evelyn at all. She claimed Helen had taken her identity after the blaze, convincing everyone that she was the surviving twin and locking the real Evelyn away. But no one believed her. The reports described delusional disorder, extreme paranoia, and identity confusion. She spent 2 decades in an asylum before vanishing. Just gone. I kept thinking about the last photo in the album. Woman found alive after 20 years. The article had no picture, no confirmation. It was like she returned, but not to the world, to the shadows between our lives, waiting, watching, planning. And then came the letters. They started appearing under my door. Folded pages, yellowed and brittle, written in cursive that danced like branches in the wind. No envelope, no signature. Just a name at the bottom, Evelyn Rose. The first letter read, "I remember the cold floor." The nurses, the way they called me the liar. But I was never the liar, she was. She stole the necklace, stole my name. I see her now in your mother's eyes. She raised you like I should have. She buried the past like she buried me. But nothing stays buried forever. I am still here, and I want it back. I showed it to my mother. She said it was a sick joke, told me not to spread it around, not to frighten Lily. But I wasn't frightened. Not yet. Just obsessed. I went back to the attic every night after that, searching for anything else. And on the third night, I found the second trunk, smaller, with a broken clasp tucked behind a stack of water-damaged board games. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them, all of the same girl. Long brown hair, soft smile, those same gray eyes that seemed to skip a generation and land in mine. Evelyn, or Helen, I couldn't tell anymore. One photo caught my eye. 2 girls, maybe 7 years old, dressed in white, standing in front of a mirror. But in the reflection, only one child was visible. I asked my father if he'd ever heard about Evelyn. He paused, fork halfway to his mouth, and said, "Only once. Your grandmother used to talk to herself. I thought it was just, old age setting in. But sometimes she said things like, I did what I had to, and she would ruined everything. Your mom told me to ignore it. So I did." But Lily started changing too. She was quieter, pale. She stayed in her room with the lights on all night. I found her sketchbook one morning. It was filled with drawings of a woman in the attic. The same face over and over again, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying, and once, bleeding. I confronted my mom again. This time I didn't ask politely. I demanded to know who Evelyn really was. What happened to her? Why she'd been silenced? She broke? She told me everything. She was 15 when the fire happened. She remembered hearing screaming from the dormitory, smoke filling the halls. She found one of the twins unconscious, dragged her out before the roof collapsed. The doctors said it was Evelyn. But days later, the girl woke up and started insisting she was Helen, accusing everyone, ranting, crying, saying the fire was deliberate, that it was a trap. My grandmother, Helen or Evelyn, or whoever she was, never visited her, just signed some papers and walked away. The story was buried under medical reports and time. But my mother remembered. She said she always had nightmares about that moment. The moment her mother looked her in the eyes and said, "She wasn't right. You have to forget her." But Evelyn hadn't forgotten us. The second letter came 2 days later. I see her now. She's slipping. She can't keep the lies straight. She whispers to herself. Cries in the bathroom. You remind her too much of me. That's why she's afraid. But you deserve the truth. You deserve the name. Come to the lake. The one in the photo. I'll show you everything. We didn't know which lake, but the photo album gave a clue. On the back of one picture, faint pencil handwriting, Black Hollow, summer 1960. I searched it. It was a real place, less than 2 hours away. I asked Lily to come with me. She refused. Said the woman in the attic told her not to go. I went anyway. Black Hollow wasn't a lake anymore. It was a swamp. The shoreline had eroded, and trees leaned low like old men whispering secrets. I walked the perimeter, holding the photo in my hand, trying to match angles, find that same dock, that same crooked pine tree. And then I saw her, not in the flesh, in the reflection. In the water, I saw a woman standing behind me. I turned. No one. I looked again. There she was. Dark dress, pale hands, locket around her neck. She pointed. There, half buried in the mud, was a wooden box. I pulled it free, heart racing. Inside were three things: a diary, a newspaper clipping, and a blood-stained handkerchief embroidered with the letters ERH. The diary changed everything. It wasn't Evelyn's, it was Helen's. She was always the sweet one, always the favorite. I hated her for that. When we were 12, she got the necklace. Said it was from Grandma. I told her it wasn't fair, that I was older by 2 minutes. She laughed. I pushed her down the stairs. She didn't move for 3 minutes. I thought she was dead. She wasn't. But something broke in both of us that day. It continued for years. Little confessions, petty cruelties, until the fire. She found my letters, the ones I wrote to that boy. She said she'd tell Mother, said I'd be sent away. So I lit the fire. I didn't mean for it to spread. I didn't mean to lose myself in her name. But once they believed I was Evelyn, it was so easy. So easy to start over, so easy to forget. I sat there by the swamp until the sun set, reading and rereading those pages. My grandmother hadn't just taken a name, she'd taken a life. And every generation since had carried the weight of that theft. I brought the diary home. I showed it to my mother. She cried. Not because she didn't believe it, but because she did, because it confirmed the whispers in her memory, the strangeness in her mother's gaze, the reason her own life had always felt off. That night, the third letter arrived. Now you know, now you carry it too. The locket is gone. But blood remembers. Memory is stronger than flesh. She stole from me. But I forgive you, because you see me. You gave me back my name. The attic has been sealed since then. Lily hasn't sleepwalked in weeks. My mother's eyes are softer now. She touches my face like she's seeing me for the first time. But sometimes, when I walk past the attic stairs, I hear humming. A lullaby I don't remember learning. And sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see two of me. One smiling, one watching. You'd think uncovering the truth would set you free. That all the fractured memories and whispered fears would finally settle into a neat, understandable shape. But they don't. If anything, truth is a kind of poison, slow and lingering. It seeps into the cracks of your life, turns every normal moment into something sinister, something laced with questions. Especially when you start to wonder not just who your grandmother really was, but who you might be. After we sealed the attic and buried the diary in a fireproof box, life didn't return to normal. It just changed shape. My mother stopped mentioning her mother at all. She donated the photo albums, sold the house's antique furniture, and even painted over the stairwell that led to the attic, as if erasing the doorway might erase what was behind it. But you can't paint over a haunting. You can't bury blood deep enough when it runs through you. Lily was the first to slip. At first, I thought she was just tired. Pale, withdrawn, sleepwalking again. But then she began to speak in her sleep, whispering things that no one had told her. Details only I knew. Phrases from the diary, exact sentences Evelyn had written. One night, I heard her murmur, "I was the favorite once, until I was pushed, until I fell." And then she cried, not like a child having a bad dream, but like someone remembering a wound too old to bandage. The locket, the one that vanished from my drawer, returned. I found it on Lily's nightstand, glinting in the moonlight like it had always been there. But it wasn't the same. The clasp was different. And inside, the picture was gone, replaced with a scrap of old paper folded tightly. I unfolded it with shaking fingers. Blood sees itself. When mirrors crack, truth leaks out. My skin went cold. I tried to confront Lily, to ask her if she remembered taking it. She just stared at me, eyes glassy, like she was listening to something only she could hear. Then she said, "It's your turn now. To carry it, to feel it." I thought the attic had been the source. But it wasn't. It was the trigger. The source was us. I started dreaming again. This time it wasn't Evelyn standing in the field of mirrors. It was Lily. But not as she was now. As an older version of herself, face streaked with ash, the locket bleeding from its hinges. She would hold out her hand, and behind her, the mirror would ripple. And I swear, every time, someone else was about to step through. Someone wearing my face. The dreams turned to visions. I'd see movement in reflective surfaces. Not the glitch a horror flick kind of thing, but subtle. Just enough for doubt to settle into my brain like mold. I'd be brushing my teeth, and for half a second, my reflection would blink just a little slower than me. I'd be walking past a window and feel a heartbeat behind my ribs that didn't belong to me. And that's when I started hearing her. She didn't speak in full sentences, just fragments. The stairs, the fire, she lied. I burned. Over and over. Always when I was alone. Always in the dark. I began to write them down. Every phrase, every whisper, until I had pages of disjointed thoughts that felt like they came from underneath my consciousness. Like they were not thoughts, but memories surfacing. I began to question everything I knew about my family, especially my mother. If she had hidden Evelyn's existence, even as a child, what else had she buried? What stories had been sanitized? Whose life had she protected, and whose had she sacrificed? So I did what I swore I wouldn't. I opened the attic again. It was different this time. Colder. Silent in a way that felt intelligent. Like the room was holding its breath. Everything was just where we left it, but there was something new. A mirror. A large, full-length antique thing with a gold frame pushed against the far wall. I didn't remember it being there before. I didn't think it had been. I stood in front of it, half expecting Evelyn or Helen or both. But it wasn't them I saw, it was me. But not me. My reflection blinked, but I hadn't. It smiled, tight and knowing, and then raised its hand before I even thought to move. I staggered back, heart pounding. The mirror flickered like it was water held together by willpower. And just before I turned away, I saw something step forward. A hand. Thin, gray, and then the mirror was just a mirror again. I didn't tell anyone what I saw. Not even when the mirror appeared in our hallway the next morning. My mother claimed it had always been there. Lily said she saw me standing in front of it all night, just staring. I knew I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. Unless it wasn't me. That's when I started researching mirror folklore. Across cultures, they've always been seen as portals, as ways to trap souls, or let them escape. There was one entry in a forum, deep web kind of stuff, about a twin who used a mirror to return, to reclaim what was taken. The post ended with, "If you dream of yourself, it's already too late." I had been dreaming of myself. The last straw came when I found Lily's latest drawing. It wasn't of Evelyn this time. It was of me. But my eyes were hollow, mouth stitched shut, hands covered in soot. And above my head was scrawled, "She lives in you now." I took Lily and left the house that night. We stayed in a motel. I told our mother we needed a break. She didn't fight me, just nodded. Her skin was pale, lips chapped, and she stared at the corner of the room like something was always standing there. At the motel, Lily finally spoke. "She's not angry anymore. She's waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked. "For you to remember." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I drove. I went back to Black Hollow. Back to the swamp where I found the diary. This time, I brought a lantern and a shovel. I didn't know what I was looking for, only that something else was buried there. Something Helen hadn't confessed to. Something Evelyn still needed me to find. I dug for hours. At sunrise, I hit something solid. A box. Metal rusted, sealed shut with wire. I cracked it open with a tire iron. Inside were bones. Small. Human. And a second locket. This one burned to the touch. I didn't take it. I left the box open by the water's edge and whispered, "I know. I understand." And for the first time, the wind stopped. Dead still. Then, just as suddenly, a gust of cold air swept through the reeds. And I swear it sounded like a voice exhaling. When I returned to the motel, Lily was already awake. She smiled, not like herself, like someone older, someone who'd carried a lifetime of silence and finally let it go. "She says thank you," she said. "She doesn't need the mirror anymore." I didn't understand then, not fully. But when we went back home the next day, the mirror was gone. So was our mother. The door to her bedroom was open, window flung wide, curtains fluttering like frantic hands. On her bed was a note, just one line. "Blood returns to blood." And beneath it, the necklace. The original one, still warm, still humming. We never found her. Police called it voluntary disappearance. Said she might have snapped under stress. They didn't know what we did. That she'd been wearing a mask for decades. That someone else had waited, and when the moment came, stepped through the glass. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's no such thing as ghosts. Maybe trauma just makes the mind fold in strange ways. But then again, mirrors never lie, unless they show you exactly what they want you to see. And sometimes the only way to reclaim a stolen life is to take someone else's. There's a saying I used to think was just poetic nonsense. The past is never dead. It's not even past. After my mother vanished, it stopped sounding like metaphor and started feeling like law. Because the past didn't fade for us. It bled forward, seeping into the present like ink on damp paper, staining everything it touched. And what scared me the most wasn't that my mother had disappeared. It was that I wasn't sure who had disappeared, or who had come back in her place. For the first few weeks, Lily and I lived in limbo. Our house sat like a hushed witness, quiet and still, as if even the walls were afraid to speak. The attic was sealed again, the mirror gone, the locket locked away in a drawer wrapped in salt and rosary beads. My last attempt at protection, more instinct than belief. We told the police everything could without sounding insane, that our mother had become distant, unstable, and then just vanished. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, just an open window and a name scrawled in faded ink. Blood returns to blood. The authorities eventually gave up. They called it a case of adult disappearance, filed and forgotten. But Lily and I knew better. Not just because of what we'd seen or heard, or dreamed, but because the air in our house had changed again. The kind of change you can't explain unless you've lived it. Like waking up in a house that looks the same, but isn't. It's not haunted by ghosts, it is the ghost. Breathing, watching. Lily stopped drawing. She started writing instead. Long, scrawled entries in a leather-bound journal she refused to let me see. Sometimes I'd walk past her room and hear her whispering into it, like it could hear her. She said the woman wasn't whispering anymore. She said she was inside now, listening. That she only got louder when Lily tried to sleep. I wanted to get rid of the locket, burn it, bury it, sink it in the lake. But every time I picked it up, I froze. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. Like holding something that knew you, that had memorized your heartbeat before you were born. So I started asking questions. To neighbors, old family friends, anyone who had known Helen or Evelyn back in the day. Most of them were either long gone or polite enough to pretend they didn't remember. But one woman, Mrs. Whitlow, a retired nurse who used to live across the street, finally cracked. I remember them, she said, sitting on her porch in a house that smelled like dust and mothballs. The twins. Mirror images, but not the same. One of them had this light, this glow about her. The other, though, she was quiet, not shy, but cold, calculated, like she knew how to smile but didn't see the point in it. I asked her which one my grandmother had been. She paused. That's just it. Everyone thought it was Evelyn who died, but after the fire I wasn't so sure. The girl who survived, her eyes changed. Her whole way of speaking. I said once, "You remind me more of Helen," and she froze. Just for a second. But I never forgot the way she looked at me. Like I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. I asked why she never said anything. She looked me dead in the eyes. Because the girl I saw after the fire wasn't someone you accuse. She was someone you survived. I left her porch shaking. Back home, Lily was gone. Her room was empty, window open, again, and on her bed, her journal, I opened it. Every page was written in a spiral, not paragraphs, not sentences, just words in a tightening circle, pulling inward like a whirlpool. And at the center of the final page, scrawled in red ink, "She's not finished. She never was. I saw her in the mirror, and she smiled with your face." I panicked. Called the police. They found her 2 hours later, walking barefoot down the road toward the lake. Her hands were raw, eyes vacant. When they tried to talk to her, she just kept saying, "She remembers now. She remembers everything." They admitted her to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. Said it was likely stress-induced psychosis, compounded by trauma. But they didn't see the way her nails were chipped like she'd been clawing at glass. Or how, when I visited her, she refused to look at any reflective surface in the room. "I'm not alone," she whispered to me once. "When you sleep, she practices your face." That night, I finally did what I had been dreading. I opened the locket. Inside was the usual clasp for a photo, but there was something behind it this time: paper, crumpled, yellowed. I pulled it out. It was a birth certificate. But not mine. Not Lily's. Evelyn Rose Hartwell. Born 2 minutes after Helen Grace Hartwell. But the strange part was the handwriting at the bottom. Someone had scribbled over the mother's name and written, "Property of the mirror. Do not remove." I didn't know what it meant until I looked again and saw that my reflection had blinked. Late again. That night, I dreamed of my birth, but not like a memory, like a reenactment. 2 babies. A storm outside. Screaming. One baby crying, the other silent. The mirror in the delivery room cracked as lightning struck, and in its reflection, only one baby was visible. I woke up gasping, sweat and afraid. Not of Evelyn, of myself. Because what if I wasn't who I thought I was? What if the mirror hadn't taken my grandmother? What if it had taken someone else, years later, and left something in their place? What if the real Evelyn never left the mirror at all? I started checking old photos, ones of me, of Lily, of our mother. But something was off. In every image with a mirror, the reflections were just slightly wrong, like someone had repainted us from memory but gotten the brush strokes too tight, too clean. Our smiles never reached our eyes. Our eyes never quite matched each other. I reached out to an online group dedicated to mirror anomalies. Most were conspiracy theorists and spiritualists. But one reply stood out. It said, "One reflections disobey. The self becomes divisible. The mirror chooses the vessel with the weakest hold on reality. If your mirror reflection ever mimics you imperfectly, do not engage. Do not correct it. Do not try to match it. That's how it switches places." I stopped using mirrors entirely, started covering them. But it didn't help. I began to see my reflection even in surfaces that shouldn't reflect. Wooden floors, black screens, even closed eyes in dreams. It was always there, always watching, practicing. And then one morning I woke up and found the mirror was back, in the attic, despite it being sealed. I didn't put it there. Lily was still at the facility, and the locket was gone. But I knew what it wanted. It wanted the final switch. It wanted blood. So I stood in front of the mirror, heart pounding, and said her name, "Evelyn, Bob." And the mirror rippled. And then, for the first time, it spoke back. "You wear my name. You breathe my air. You live the life she stole. Now give it back." "I didn't steal anything," I said. "I'm not her. I'm not Helen." "No," she whispered. "You're me." The glass cracked. One long split down the center. And then my reflection stepped out. Not in a supernatural flash, just stepped out. Quietly, like it had been waiting for permission. It was me, but hollow. Eyes too still, smile too perfect. She tilted her head, studying me like a scientist inspecting a subject. And then she said, "You should have never opened the locket." I tried to run, but she was faster. She reached out, touched my hand, and in that instant I split, memories fractured. I saw her life, Evelyn's pain, the asylum, the mirrors, the endless reflection, the moment of fire, the breath she took in smoke, the scream she swallowed, the door that closed behind her forever. I saw her become me, and me become nothing. And then, darkness. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed. They said I'd been found in the attic, unconscious, dehydrated, delirious. They said I kept mumbling, "It's not me, it's not me." But here's the thing. They think I'm awake. They think I'm recovered. But I'm still inside, screaming, watching. And she's in my skin now, smiling, living. And no one can tell the difference. They say the worst kind of prison is the one no one knows you're in. I used to roll my eyes at that kind of thing, but not anymore. because I am trapped. Trapped behind my own face. Watching someone else wear my voice like silk, my gestures like gloves. She smiles with my teeth now. She breathes with my lungs. And the world keeps turning around her like nothing changed. But everything did. And I am still here, in the cracks. They think I'm fine, the doctors, the nurses. Even Lily, though something in her eyes flickers every time she sees me. She watches me like a puzzle she once solved but suddenly doesn't recognize. I mimic well. I've learned. Evelyn has learned. She knows my habits, my phrases, even the way I furrow my brow when I think too hard. She wears me with such precision it terrifies me. But not as much as what she plans to do next. Because I see the way she looks at Lily. It started slowly, the unraveling. Just whispers at first. Fragments caught in reflections, moments I could feel her thoughts bleeding into mine. But now I feel everything. Her hunger, her longing, her rage. She spent decades watching others live the life she believed was hers, and now she's taking it all back, piece by piece. And I am just the beginning. The hospital discharged Pomme after a week. They said I'd experienced a dissociative episode, possibly from grief or inherited trauma. No one mentions the mirror. No one questions why the scans of my brain showed an unusual light echo in the frontal lobe, as if two signals had briefly overlapped and tried to coexist. The doctors wrote it off as an equipment glitch. Evelyn smiled and nodded and thanked them all. Back at home, the locket sat on my nightstand, waiting. Open, empty. She doesn't wear it anymore. She doesn't need to. Lily came home 2 weeks later, after what they called a promising breakthrough. She was quiet, older somehow. Not in years, but in the way people who've seen the edge of the world carry themselves. She watched Evelyn cautiously, like someone studying a ticking clock. The first night we were all under the same roof again, Evelyn made dinner. Lasagna, Lily's favorite. I could taste the basil from somewhere deep in my memories, and it sickened me. Not because it was wrong, but because it was perfect. And when Lily thanked her, Evelyn tilted her head and said, "Anything for you. You're my only family now." Only family? It sounded like a warning. That night, Lily wrote in her journal again. I saw her hide it under the floorboard beneath her bed, just like I used to. Evelyn doesn't know that yet. She will. She learns fast. But Lily's writing, it's different now. She scribbles in loops and spirals like I did when the mirror was bleeding through. And I'm terrified that she's starting to hear the same things. That the mirror isn't just a portal, but a disease, a contagion. And now it's spreading. I've tried to fight from within, tried to scream through her eyes, force her hands to shake, make her hesitate. But she's too strong. She's had too long to prepare, and I've had too little time to understand what I am now. But then something shifted. The first crack. It was during a thunderstorm. The power went out, and the mirror in the hallway lit up. Faintly, like it had its own electricity. I watched from the inside, watching Evelyn watch herself. And for a brief moment, she blinked late. Just once, just enough for me to feel the split again. Like the prison door jiggled. It gave me hope. Tiny, dangerous, but enough. So I began watching her as she had watched me. Every movement, every moment of doubt. I began testing the edges of her grip, seeing where she was vulnerable. And I found something. She can't enter sleep fully. At night, she tenses, holds her breath. She twitches violently just as she's about to fall asleep, like something's trying to pull her back in. And that's when I push. That's when I scream inside her skull. And that's when she dreams of me. I appear in the mirror behind her. I smile with her smile. And I whisper, "You're not done yet." She wakes gasping every time. The cracks are growing. But she's not backing down. She's speeding up. She started preparing the attic again, cleaning it, scrubbing every inch, whispering names under her breath, names I don't recognize, and one name I do, Lily. I don't know what the ritual is, but it's coming, and it's not for her. It's for my sister. She's planning to pass it on, to trade again, to bury her pain in someone else, and I won't let that happen. So I started planting things. Not physical objects, memories, I found a way to press through. During the moments she's half asleep, I send fragments, sandwiches, the lake, the fire, the diary. I give them to Lily in pieces. I see them in her eyes the next day. Recognition she can't explain. She draws again now. I saw a sketch she tried to hide. It was me. The real me. The one from before the mirror. And under it, one word. She noped. She just doesn't know what to do. But I do. The locket is the key. It always was. It's not just an heirloom. It's a vessel, a prison, a mirror in metal, and it can be used in both directions. Evelyn came through with it. But maybe, just maybe, I can send her back through it. But I need help. I need Lily, and time is running out. Evelyn is accelerating. Her behavior is changing. More erratic. She talks to herself now, paces, holds the locket at night and whispers things in Latin I didn't know she knew. She thinks no one hears. But Lily does. I do. And last night, Lily slipped a note into the pocket of the coat Evelyn wears. It simply said, "Remember." She wants to come home, but Evelyn burned it. But her hands were shaking. She knows. The game is turning, and I'm getting stronger. Stronger because Lily believes. Because someone sees me. That's all I needed. That's all I ever needed. Lily is setting the trap. I don't know exactly how, but I felt it in the attic tonight. Something buried under the floorboards has been pulled loose. A circle of candles appeared. Salt. Mirror shards placed facing inward. And the locket in the center. She's recreating the night Evelyn came through. Only this time, the door will open the other way. And I'll be ready, because the next time Evelyn blinks wrong, I'm pulling. Hard. The body might not survive the switch, but I will. And if I don't, at least she won't take Lily. Because I won't let her. I am not Evelyn. I am not a ghost. I am me. And I am coming home. The night it all ended, the sky split open like it knew what was coming. Rain fell in sheets so thick it blurred the world, turning streetlights into soft, bleeding hallows. Thunder rolled through the walls of our house, shaking the glass, echoing through the floorboards. And somewhere deep inside, under the attic, under the stairs, under the very skin of the house, something old began to stir. I wasn't asleep that night. Evelyn never let me sleep anymore. Not really. I drifted behind her eyes, clinging to shadows, watching everything she did, every smile she faked, every word she crafted to sound just like me. But lately, it had taken effort. Strain. Like even she was beginning to falter under the weight of wearing someone else for so long. Lily had stopped speaking directly to her days ago. She spoke around her now, careful, measured. She nodded when Evelyn talked, smiled when Evelyn smiled. But her eyes told a different story. I saw them. I felt them. She knew. And tonight, she was going to help me end it. At exactly midnight, Lily lit the candles in the attic. She waited until Evelyn was distracted downstairs, folding laundry with inhuman precision, humming an old lullaby none of us had taught her. I watched through Evelyn's eyes as she paused for a moment. Just a flicker of unease. She felt something shift, the way animals feel earthquakes before they hit. She looked up, smelled smoke, and smiled. She knew. She knew Lily was trying to summon me back. But it wasn't rage that crossed her face. It was something darker. Satisfaction. As if she had been waiting for someone to challenge her. As if it wasn't a trap for her at all, but for Lily. That's when I felt real fear again. Not for myself. For my sister. Because Evelyn didn't need to keep me imprisoned much longer. She was ready to replace me entirely. And Lily was her perfect vessel. She went to the attic slowly, deliberately. Each step up the stairs sent a jolt through my spine. My memories vibrated behind her forehead like static. She passed the cracked photo on the wall. Me and Lily at the lake, ages ago. The same lake Evelyn had drowned in metaphorically, then clawed her way back out of. She stared at that photo for too long, and whispered, "She doesn't know what she is." Upstairs, Lily had drawn the circle again. Salt. Mirror shards. The locket at the center. Candles in each corner of the room. On the floor beside it, a page torn from my old journal. The one with my real handwriting, my real voice. It read, "I am not her. I am not gone. Bring me back." Evelyn stepped into the circle. Lily stood behind it. Rain pounded the windows. Lightning lit the room with every breath. The house was holding its breath, and I, inside Evelyn's mind, was screaming, "Don't hurt her, please, not her." But she didn't strike. She just knelt, picked up the locket, held it to her chest like an old wound, and said, "You should never have opened the mirror." Lily didn't flinch. "She's not you." Evelyn looked up. She was. Before she forgot. And then, with a terrifying calm, she opened the locket and pressed her thumb to the mirror inside. The attic exploded with sound. Not noise. Screams. Water. Fire. The lullaby. Two girls. The smell of burning hair. The crack of bone. Mirrors shattering. A voice screaming. "It should have been me." The circle glowed. The mirror shards vibrated, and I was pulled forward like a string yanked tight. I saw myself, not a reflection. Me, hovering above the circle, weightless, wordless, waiting. Lily was crying now. She chanted the words Evelyn had taught her from the diary, not knowing they weren't just spells. They were commands, anchors, a map for returning a soul, but not necessarily the right one. Evelyn stood, hair whipping around her like storm clouds, and said, "She's weak, she's afraid. That's why she never came back." And then, like a switch had been flipped, she stepped out of the circle, and Lily collapsed. Her eyes fluttered, and I knew what she had done. She had prepared the circle for me, but Evelyn had changed the rules. She was never going to let me back in. She was going to trap Lily instead. Use her as the next body, a fresh start, a stronger vessel. And I was about to disappear for good, unless I acted now. I poured every ounce of thought, memory, self into the locket still clutched in Evelyn's hand, pushed until the chain snapped, until her fingers curled, until the glass cracked, and in that 1 second, she blinked late. I moved, with everything I'd left through the shard, through the glass, through her fingers, back, into me. And Evelyn, just for a second, stumbled, her face twisted. She screamed, not aloud, but into the walls, the floor, the air. I opened my eyes. I was on the floor of the attic, not inside her, not in a dream, home. Lily sat up, gasping, and looked at me. "Is it really?" And then Evelyn lunged, not at me, at the mirror. She grabbed the largest shard and sliced her own palm open. Blood sprayed across the salt. The candles blew out at once. The attic shook. And she screamed, "If I can't live in her, I'll burn you all with me." The circle ignited in flame. The locket melted. The mirror glowed red, then black. And Evelyn, she smiled and stepped into it, glass warped, and swallowed her whole. The attic collapsed. Lily and I barely made it out before the floor buckled and caved in on itself. We crawled outside into the storm. The house groaned once more, and then went still. They called it a lightning strike. Structural failure, just another freak accident in a town already known for its ghosts. Lily and I left that place behind, but not everything stayed behind. The locket, what was left of it, was found by the cleanup crew, a puddle of silver fused to the floorboards. Inside it, a single word burned into the metal. Again, and we buried it in the lake where Evelyn once stood. And we haven't spoken of her since. But some nights when the power flickers, when I pass by a mirror, and the reflection is just a moment too slow, I wonder, did she really leave, or is she still waiting in the glass, in the cracks? For someone else to forget, for someone else to open the locket, and begin it all over again. Thanks for watching the video, subscribe, and like the video.